Well, let's start off today's show in Ethiopia. The International Monetary Fund officials are currently visiting the country, and that's for talks on a new support program. Now, officials from the global lender are expected to stay for about 10 days in Ethiopia. Of course, Ethiopia's financial assistance request comes just as the country emerges from 2 years of civil war, which of course hammered its economy. Now, Ethiopia is also grappling with surging inflation and a crippling drought. It has been seeking debt relief under the Group of 20's common framework. But of course, progress has stalled, and that's partly due to that conflict in the Tigray region. Now, the government needs about $20 billion for its post-conflict reconstruction. The nation's Eurobonds have rallied since, of course, that ceasefire, which was signed on November 2nd. Well, joining us now with some more insight into that IMF program is CGTN's Chala. He joins us now in Addis Ababa. Girum, always good to have you with us on the show. And I'd just like to start off with how significant that progress we're seeing with IMF officials in the country, how significant it is for Ethiopia's economy right now. What does it signal in terms of a potential new deal on the table?
Good evening, Uche, from the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa. This is a huge green light for Ethiopia. There are already excitements from the authorities, and because they have reasons, as you might understand, that out of the 2 years war, Ethiopia needs a lot of money, as you've said, to be more specific, $20 billion in different aspects of the economy. Some of them, of course, for the support that should be used on the affected areas of the northern part of the country because of the 2 years war, as we've said. So the presence of IMF officials in this country is perhaps a positive step forward in order for Ethiopia to secure the loan or financial support it has requested so far. The country has been desperately looking for this support, obviously. Why? Because its economy has been affected, not only, by the way, because of the war, but also some climate change and also the global economic situation due to the war in Ukraine and other situations at the same time. So the presence of IMF officials here and them staying here for 10 days is a very good sign for Ethiopia that its plan of getting financial support from the World Monetary Organization is going to be a reality. And Ethiopia, of course, has a lot to prove over the next 10 days so that these experts and officials will be convinced so that they can provide the money direly needed in this country.
Well, Kiram, I'm curious about how smooth sailing you think this week will be, because we know that discussions are expected to feature that impasse with the U.S., which of course is one of the IMF's biggest contributors, over those investigations into alleged human rights abuses during the Tigray conflict. How much of a roadblock could that particular topic be to those negotiations?
Which, as you might remember, Antony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, visited Ethiopia perhaps a few weeks back, and he was serious about this human rights abuses cases, which, by the way, the U.S. believes that all parties involved in this conflict, including the central government, some force from the Amhara, and also the TPLF side, are involved in this, and all of them must be, asked questions. And also, at the end of the day, justice needs to be served. The good news, however, is that Ethiopia is working with the UN and the United States in order to provide any support that is needed so that people who are behind any activities which were abusive of human rights so that they can be asked at the end of the day. So if Ethiopia continues to be cooperative in this manner, and if what the international community requires is at the end of the day delivered, I don't think it's going to be a big problem for Ethiopia to achieve what is required from the IMF side at the same time. But then again, as you've said, the roadblock would be whatever questions being asked by the international community, if they they are not delivered and cooperation is not available, then this could be an issue to be concerned about. But so far what we hear is that Ethiopia is positive to cooperate with any investigators, at the same time also disputing what Ethiopia calls false allegations by some investigators coming from the UN side, for instance. So in general terms, only time will tell what's going to happen from this area of concern, but so far it looks so good.
Now, of course, you already spoke about why Ethiopia needs an IMF deal in terms of the economy. But authorities in Ethiopia also say a potential program will help support its debt restructuring plans, of course, but also a homegrown economic reform program. Give us some more insight, Girum, into what that plan entails.
Today, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Uche was speaking MPs in the Ethiopian parliament. He said that last year alone Ethiopia paid 1.7 billion US dollars. He also said that this debt repayment is tough at this time because the economy is struggling, obviously why. But then again, he said that over the last 5 years since he came to power, that is, Ethiopia took not a single US dollar of commercial loans. He said that these loans were taken before 5 years, but then again, in order to take the country out of any default situation, that repayment must be done. But then again, these kinds of repayment activities through the Ethiopian economy itself is not going to help the problem the country is facing. So the program you've been referring to is also in relation to what Ethiopia expects from the G20 countries to support, and that program has been delayed in order for it to provide any kind of support that the country was looking forward to receive because of the conflict in the north and because of some other political and economic issues in this nation. IMF already has questions to ask and Ethiopia to answer, which is about the devaluation of the birr itself. IMF believes that birr needs to devalue it, and it should significantly devalue it, and it expects the Ethiopian government to provide that promise that it's been making for a long time. This sounds perhaps very small, but it could have a significant economic impact on the nation. So generally, the homegrown economic reform plan, the G20 program and others are expected to assist Ethiopia in order to tackle the problems related with debt restructuring and also repayments that the country needs to make. Like I said earlier, what's important here is that IMF and Ethiopia are working together. G20 countries are showing support at the moment, including the United States and China. So only time will tell if Ethiopia is going to pass through this turbulent time in its economic history.